His mom.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Spooky Screen. We'll be discussing the new hit HBO show, The Last of Us. Each week, we do a new episode review, helping you guys decide whether you should watch this show or skip it. With me are my hosts for tonight's discussion of episode 5, Noah, Nick, Johnny, and David. If this is the first review that you're coming across, we politely ask that you go back to episode 1, having seen the pilot episode, and make your way up to episode 5 with this review. And this is the first and last warning for all who are watching. Spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing episode 5 in excruciating detail. So let's get into it. Guys, what did we think about this episode? A big thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Like and subscribe.
Everyone liked this episode. Dave, can you get us kicked off here? What did you like about episode 5?
I really like this episode. It concluded what they set up in episode 4 really well, and I really feel like this episode should have been called the re-education of Ellie, because by the end of this episode, it feels like she's coming out of it like a new person, or like she's learned a lesson that she didn't want to learn, but she had to learn.
What do you think that lesson was specifically?
Just that this world is a lot more fragile and a lot more dangerous, and there's a lot more risks in this world than she previously understood.
Yeah.
Right. She's like, they didn't cover this in Fedra school.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Dave, that's a good segue, because my big issue with last episode was that I felt like it was too safe and that the stakes weren't high enough. And I think that this episode remedied that. They provided enough action, thriller, death, fighting to supplement. I think the only criticism was they should have just combined the episodes. That would have gotten over the slump of the other one, but it is what it is, because it landed really well. So
note to Craig Mazin and Casey Bloys, we just want more. We want more.
Full-length feature film every time.
Yeah. Noah, what were you going to say?
Johnny's segue is a good segue for my segue. I feel like this is the episode where all the non-gamers can finally get a taste of what Last of Us is really about. Like how it's what we all think is a masterpiece. And it's kind of like differentiating itself. It's almost like all who are weary now turn back, because the road ahead's even more rough. And this episode for me is everything that I love in Last of Us in a single jam-packed episode. It's that thin line between beauty and bleakness, surviving and stepping upon another, hero and villain. It's that gray morality. And of course, we got the Infected for the first time, the brutality of the Infected, which I feel has been lacking in the series so far. We finally get to see it, and it was amazing.
I feel like, Noah, you should get a heart tattoo like Johnny has, but it needs to say beauty and bleakness.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to say that forever.
Welcome to the
That's your rallying cry for this season, honestly.
It's the franchise, baby.
That is like an amazing alternate title to like daytime soap operas, I have to say. It's like
Beauty and Bleakness.
The beauty and the bleakness. Next time on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. Anyways.
So, Noah, I love that you brought up that.
Oh, you're going to segue my segue?
You're going to seg the segues?
I love that you brought up like this is like something that the non-gamers get to see, because for me, I think the one thing I loved about this episode as someone who looks for constant comparisons and recreations of the game, this episode outdid the game to me. This episode was fantastic. It was so well done. The moment the Horde came out of the hole, the way that they just exploded out and started attacking the entire army was far. When I saw that, I was like, man, I really wish this was something I got to do in the game. Far exceeded my expectations of the scene. Some of the best television I've ever televisioned this year and last year.
It's only February, my friend. There's plenty more television.
Look, as somebody who doesn't watch
television,
as somebody who doesn't watch a lot of TV, like. This was just
someone sounds like they're Boba Fetting themselves.
The Last of Us actually deserves this accolade, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And you know what? I'm gonna seg, and previous
This is a segue breaker.
The thing that The Last of Us does so well is it does not waste a single character in this show. And we got that with Bill and Frank. We got that with Tess. We even got that a little bit with Marlene in the beginning. And now we get that with Henry and Sam. And I think these characters are setting up, it's like kind of Joel and Ellie entering a funhouse mirror exhibit. And they're seeing different reflections of themselves in the future. And it's depicted by these side characters that we're seeing episode to episode, right? Henry and Sam depict a vision of Joel and Ellie where one is relying on the other in terms of having a sense of purpose in this desolate world, versus Frank and Bill depict where true, pure love can take you in a world that as broken as this one. And I just, the writing is incredible. The acting is unparalleled. It's just great overall television, and I've been enjoying the heck out of it.
Shout out to the kid who played Sam. His acting was phenomenal.
Yeah, phenomenal. I love the fact that they made him deaf. It was a big change from the video game, but it just made him that much more reliant on his older brother. More emotional stakes. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode as well, and I'm very excited for the next 4. I almost wish that they had like 10, 11, 12, but we get what we get, right? Yeah. So let's break down the episode kind of beat by beat, right? We start out with chaos in the streets of Kansas City. A flare shoots up in the air. Kathleen and her army have declared victory over Pedro. We see soldiers being, mutilated and
lynched, everything.
Just profoundly violent ways. And we have Henry and Sam who start out this episode, and they're kind of weaving their way through these streets of chaos. They find shelter through the help of a doctor who was, spoiler alert, killed in the previous episode. Kind of shelters them with some limited amounts of food. And as the doctor gets captured, and he was killed by Kathleen, they have to go on the run again, and they run into Ellie and Joel as a result of tailing them from witnessing the firefight that happens. So there we kind of see the dynamic kind of play out, right? We have Sam and Henry on one side, we have Joel and Ellie, and we kind of see this mirrored reflection between these two characters. We then transition from these 4 as they plot their escape out of Kansas City through the tunnels, because the entire city is kind of in lockdown mode due to Kathleen's army patrolling the streets, to Kathleen sitting in her brother's room and explaining to her right-hand man, whose name is escaping me at this moment.
Perry?
The fantastic
Perry.
beard.
It's Perry.
Perry. Yeah, Perry.
Leon.
Leon is a great name, though.
It's not it.
I would completely believe that. So Perry and Kathleen are having a conversation in her bedroom, and Kathleen explains how she came into power, and how her brother kind of he died as a result of Henry ratting on him, right? But there's one crucial piece of information there, and again, this goes back, Noah, to your bit about this is such a morally gray world. Like you said, the beauty and the bleakness.
The beauty
right?
and bleakness. Yeah. So I personally really love that Kathleen scene. It kind of explained everything that I feel like Johnny and David were complaining about. Like, how did this woman get into power? To me, she goes into this bedroom, her childhood bedroom of her brother, who we learn is like this kind leader that anyone just wants to follow because he's so forgiving and so merciful that you're just willing to follow him to the ends of the earth. And then you learn that Henry gives him up for his brother's sake, right? And even in jail, being beaten by Fedra, his brother forgives Henry. Whereas Kathleen, in that moment, it breaks her. She realizes forgiveness gets you nowhere, right? So this is where, I know Steven's gonna make fun of me, but this is where the bleak and the beauty comes in, because she has such devout love for her brother, right? It's beautiful. Same for all the people following him. They have such a love for him, but that love is what ultimately destroys them. Because when they lose that love, when they lose that purpose, when they lose someone who they care for, it becomes this violent, angry, revengeful thing. It becomes the bleak thing. And that's where Kathleen rises to power, right? She goes, forgiveness. My brother was forgiving. Look what happened to him. And she is able to rise to power with the anger from all the people that followed her brother. And they go out and just destroy Fedra. and they just create a culture of violence. And
were
it
successful.
ultimately, yes, they're successful. Yes, they destroyed and mutilated Fedra, and they became what they hated. Right? They became what they hated, but the violence ultimately destroys them in the end. Like, it's just how it is, you know?
Yeah.
So it goes from this beautiful love of her brother to this bleakness.
It corrupts.
And that's where it's the interesting balance that Last of Us always proposes. Like, yes, love is beautiful, but it's also dangerous. So
on the topic of Kathleen, though, and this is something I want to ask Johnny, was you mentioned stakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you didn't feel like it was there wasn't enough stakes in the previous episode. How do you feel like this episode turned that corner for you to kind of enjoy it?
Yeah, I think that the groundwork of the previous episode was necessary. I understand that. I think that this episode did an even better job of making surviving in the city seem harder. You know, they really explain some of the logistics and challenges of eating, of drinking, of getting around, and you felt that elevated concern. So, I mean, aside from just the violence, I just mean like the world felt more at risk just to be there, let alone the killing. The opening scene was frightening. Like, it was actually quite violent. It was a jarring first scene with like dead bodies stabbed and like mutilation. Like, it was rough. And so I think that mixed with the logistics, and then a French word for ending that's amazing. I should know that, but I'm not very articulate. The
Shot of Eve.
I'm gonna say and I mean that scene alone, you know, they're being chased down by they're getting shot by a scout. The army is coming with just a massive presence, right? Like huge trucks. You're like, what's gonna happen? And then Henry gets out and I'm gonna sacrifice myself for my brother. He's like, maybe it'll work. And I thought that was an overlooked scene. That was beautiful. And then suddenly it all pops off. And like that, I mean, the stakes on this were consistent the whole time. So actually, I still think the other episode probably could have had a little more of the bleed through of the violence of the revolution and the logistics of the city pulled into it more. But I mean, this episode made up for it. So, but I really do think this episode, if they continued the stakes like this throughout the series, the show is just going to be timeless.
They were quite a bit tamer in the previous episode. In your defense, Kathleen's army,
yeah,
and I think we saw the true face of their brutality and how they managed to take over Kansas City. Dave, I cut you off before.
Yeah, oh no, just kind of a lightning bolt thought came to me when Noah was speaking. I think these 4 and 5, this episode 4 and 5, really brought home this idea of what happens when you gain something to save. What will you do if you have something to save? And what happens when you lose the only thing that you thought was worth saving? You know, Kathleen, the only thing worth saving to her was her brother.
Right.
And what did she do when she lost him? And Henry,
she burned the world.
What will he do to save Sam? He will give a man's life up for his brother. And
what
Joel,
did Bill do? What did Bill do?
Bill, yeah. In episode 3, he's like, you're the only one who is worth saving in this whole world. And Joel is a man who's lost everything and now is opening himself up to trying to save someone again. And this fear, like, can I do it? Can I save this person? And yeah, what Noah was just saying, I was like, oh my God, I get it.
Yeah, they're attacking it from every dangle.
Yeah,
every dangle.
Every dangle.
Every dangle.
Cannot let that go by.
Important.
That's going in the blooper reel.
I will say the one thing
great.
that I appreciate now that you guys have seen this episode is the fact that you guys were so adamant about how you were so happy that episodes 1, 2, and 3 were self-contained stories, self-contained chapters.
Yeah.
The fact that episode 4 had to be a leave-off and pick up in episode 5, you were like, that's a mistake. It really just doesn't work. And now episode 5 has completed that story, and it really brought it home for you guys, such to the extent that like a surprising amount where you like now you guys are praising how well the storytelling was done.
Whoa.
I know you're still a little on the fence, but you have to admit that
I still think 4 could have been highly modified or combined with 5.
Yeah, Johnny's
right?
saying that you could have drew in a little bit of that brutality.
Anyway,
into
I don't want to get
episode
stuck
4.
on
Can I
that.
make an quick argument against that though?
Never.
A argument?
No, you cannot. Make
My
an
argument is that
Make me
that
margarita.
episode was more about Joel and Ellie than the revolution. That's all I'm gonna say. Like I just think they were trying to build. They're trying to build out the relationship, and I think if you brought the revolution into it and too much of that violence, it would have been distracting. Because that's what we would have focused on.
Especially after episode 3, I think they're trying to do a balancing act there. So the episode proceeds, right? We have Sam, Henry, Joel, and Ellie working their way through the tunnels. They come across this underground safe haven.
It's like an underground kindergarten class.
And they hang out there for a little bit. And as they make their way out from underground, they appears to be in the clear, but then a sniper starts to fire upon them. Turns out to be a guy who works for Kathleen's militia. Joel eventually gets to him, takes him out, but Kathleen's arrived with her full army. They're just plowing through cars in this amazing action sequence. And they've got Henry, Sam, and Ellie cornered while Joel has a sniper. And that's where the hole that we were talking about so obsessively last episode reveals itself.
Well, it wasn't even the hole. It was because the hole was in town.
That's true.
I think it was implying that there was infected underground bird
activity.
Yeah.
There was underground activity. Right? They come out like Day of the Dead, 28 Days Later. I forget the Zack Snyder movies. Is that Dawn of the Dead type zombies? Yeah. These guys can run. Like they're
just people, right? I mean, they're people just full on sprinting at everyone.
Yeah. And the bloater,
World War Z style,
cave troll. And my prediction.
Yeah, Johnny's prediction is I'll give you like a C plus.
Come on, he was cave troll-esque. He had a big hammer.
B negative.
A big hammer.
So
B negative.
The bloater emerges, chases after Kathleen, decapitates Perry, and starts to take out Kathleen's men one by one. And it's just this enormous fungal boss, just absolute unit. Henry, Sam, and Ellie are about to make their escape because the bloater is distracting everyone. But Kathleen pins them down with a gun. And as she's about to pull the trigger, we have this child clicker launch itself at her, beat her to death, and they're able to escape unscathed, which leaves us with the hotel scene. And that's kind of where I want to turn it over to you, Johnny. Dave, you have not played the games again. We remind our audience this every episode.
Right, losers.
What did Dave? What did you think about that ending?
I needed a hard drink and like a Snicker bar after that ending.
Yeah, what an odd combination.
I don't know. I need like something to relieve the stress.
Something comforting.
Yeah, something comforting. Yeah, that was an excellent ending, especially with this like idea of the softening of Joel and kind of Joel throughout these last 2 episodes allowing himself to be like, okay, maybe we will be all right. Maybe we will be all right. And then just that last scene with Ellie trying to save Sam and it all just gets smacked in their face. Like, nope, no one's getting out of this unscathed. And I was just like, when they walk off, I wanted to walk off. I was like, all right, I don't know where this is going. I'm excited to see where it's going, but I don't know.
Just for the context too, for our viewers, they arrive at a hotel to relax. The kids go to bed to sleep. And then Sam's little boy shows Ellie that he was bitten. He doesn't know what that means. And Ellie is still 12. She knows she has special blood, and she said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." And cuts her own hand to put her blood on his cut, and says, "You're going to be okay. It's medicine." And they go to sleep, and there's a part of you that wants to 100% believe, "Wow, that worked." And then when they're awake in the morning, he's sitting there, and you're like, "That's awesome. They survived." Like every other show that's ever been made. And then she touches him, and he's turned, and he starts attacking her. And then quickly they have to decide if they're going to put him down or not, because he's only an 8-year-old
Henry
boy.
has to decide
Well,
because he grabs the gun.
whole group has to.
Yeah.
And Henry, the brother, gets the gun before Joel, and Joel's freaking out because there's a live zombie or whatever, fungal infected person. And it's a little boy, and the brother shoots him and then can't handle life and kills himself. And so these characters you just fell in love with stripped out from under you. And so, I mean, that like I said before, and I'll say again, that made this episode one of the best TV episodes I've watched, because it's just heart-wrenching. And like that emotional, it was appropriate. It was well timed, and it sets you up for the rest of the season now, because this whole buildup, like this was the first, I felt like this was the end of the first chapter, right? And I know there's other chapters, but that's how it felt like. And now they're going to launch into this dark journey that's just only going to be more like this. So I thought that was great.
I think one of the things here, guys, like I'd be remiss not to bring up is when Sam is talking to Ellie, when he's writing on the board, before he shows her the infection, he says, "If you become a monster, does that mean you're not a good person inside anymore?"
Yeah.
And that's so heartbreaking, because this 8-year-old like has already come to terms with the fact that this world is crap, and he knows
he's staring down the barrel of a gun, right?
Yeah.
Nick? Like he knows what's happened to him.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He's not a child who's just like, oh, maybe, but like even though he's only 8 years old, he still has the forethought to know, like, this isn't going to end well for me.
Right. Yeah. I just acting in that scene. I mean, for him,
yeah,
to emote, because he's an actual he's a hearing impaired actor in real life, and he has a vocal coach that follows him to these acting gigs. But yeah, just his ability to emote in that scene, even without dialogue, just like they were just so good. And the older brother, Henry, I think we're gonna see him in some big movies. I just thought he was so great. Believable as Henry. And
they're casting this franchise
so well.
is amazing. I just want to give a note of warning to the non-gamers, and anyone else that's just a strictly TV watcher. Not that. I want to say, you got to learn to enjoy the little finite moments. And I'll use Sam as an example, right? He has a horrible, tragic ending, right? But the day before, he gets to spend it like a kid again. Like he grew up in this military government state, starving, sick, people, his brother betraying their friends and family right around him and worrying about being backstabbed. And the day before he dies, he gets to spend it with Ellie, and he gets to just be a kid again. He gets to play soccer, read comic books, It's just like those little moments where you can just learn to enjoy life, mean everything, even when your ending is just terrible. Like you don't know how long you have, so enjoy it. Enjoy the time you have. I just want to. That's my warning to the people that are watching that are not played the game. Enjoy the happy moments,
the little things in life,
the little things.
Yeah, absolutely.
The strawberry giggles.
The strawberry giggles.
Yes.
Have your strawberry giggles, because they might be your last. Yeah. You never know.
That's a good lesson for us all.
To speak to Noah's point real quick, it's like in that scene
follow
when
that up. What do you?
No, I'm not trying.
I'm a one up you.
He's gonna do a guy. I'm gonna let you go.
No, I'm not trying to one up Noah, but it's just something now that I'm replaying the episode in my mind, like, and that scene with Ellie and Sam, and Henry says to Joel, like, "What's the last time you seen heard that laughter?"
Yeah.
And you could see Joel kind of wanting to accept it, but also at the same time, like, don't you give me that effing hope. Don't try to bring this, don't try to make me a real person again.
Yeah,
and that's so heartbreaking.
that's what the showrunner Craig Mazin was talking about in the inside the episode series that shows up after the credits, where he's talking about how Joel is becoming more and more soft, and Ellie is becoming more and more hardened by this world. Right? She's being exposed to the brutalities of this world that Joel has been living in for 20 years. And Joel now has this new companion that reminds him of his daughter, right? And is starting to feel his fatherly instincts start to creep out from under his rough exterior. And Craig Mazin says that terrifies him, and that ends that sequence. It's doing such a great job of pitting even the closest characters in the show against each other from an emotional or psychological standpoint, right? We have one who's being exposed to violence for the first time over and over again, and another who has been exposed to it and is trying, first doesn't care about this girl, but now is like, oh, I need to protect her. I need to care for her. How do I do that? Right. And that's the question that we're left with at the end of the episode, when he's staring at her walking off in the distance, like, I've failed her. Like Henry and Sam are 6 feet below them. I just think that it's doing a great job of setting up the rest of the season. And we only have 4 episodes left, but these beats are going to matter as we approach the end of season 1. So with that being said, let's get to our favorite section, which is the conspiracy theories. I feel like it's hard to, in Johnny's Dave's defense, like, it's hard to come up with theories because it feels like, again,
starting
talk
over
about those sexy arcs, but
Yeah.
What do you think lies ahead, Johnny and Dave, for our 2 heroes?
Maybe think about it as Wyoming, that is the goal, right?
Yeah. My prediction, and again, reminder, I nailed the last one. I had cave troll-esque zombie come out, and that's what the bloater is like.
He pulled that one out of his butt.
I nailed it, as I always do. I think that this next chapter, part of the struggle, I think, this is my guess, is going to lean into the lack of society and the lack of, like, the protection of like a house and building them. Like, there's going to be some storm, or there's going to be some large scale event that they're going to have to try to get cover from, and then that's going to lead them into a new series of unfortunate events. I don't know what those are because it's very open-ended right now. There's not a lot of, like, it could be the cannibals, it could be slave traders, it could be a million things. I don't know where it's going to be because I know they're going to Wyoming, but I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to be making their way. They're going to get pushed aside by some great natural event, some huge tornado, some wild thing. It's going to cause some drama, and then that's going to put them right in this new situation that is going to, hopefully unfold just as magically.
Dave, what about you? Any theories?
Sadly, I didn't get my chainsaw arm at the end of episode 5, but I'm okay with that. This was 2 excellent episodes.
Holding out hope, David?
I'm still holding out hope. To co-sign and add a little bit on Johnny's theory, I think there's going to be an episode where Joel has to give over that control to Ellie, and, like, their roles switch. Like, maybe Joel gets injured in a storm or, like, weather, or he gets sick, like fever, and Ellie has to take over as a protector and make sure that they survive, like, a winter. And maybe it's, like, kind of like a flash forward episode, like winter to spring type stuff, because I know some shows have done that. But
wait, David, did you watch the next episode info?
No, I haven't watched
I have not.
I haven't watched the what's coming next or the after the episodes. I stopped after episode 2 because it was ruining it for me.
Yeah, I just wanted to say
that's a good choice. Yeah.
I would say
keep things pure.
I would say theory is our major question is, how are they going to end this game? Like, how does this game end?
Oh my God, there he goes again. He's like, he's worried about
it.
I'm just saying, like,
all I
how
can
are
say,
they going to end?
Guy,
like,
where did we go from here?
I'm just going to say, because, like, this...
We can't...
That's not a theory, David.
Well, no, like,
it's not a theory.
I'm going on the proposition is, like, this season is the whole first game, right? Like, that's what we're told.
4 more episodes.
David.
You have 4 more hours of TV.
There are a few things that I consider a masterpiece. I do not throw that word out often, but
right. That is
All right, so I was
Last
just,
of Us Part 1 and Part 2 are masterpieces, in my opinion.
There are not enough Game of the Year awards that this game has won, Noah, to convince David.
I know, like
some sense of security as to where we're headed.
HBO Max signed off on a video game adaptation.
Adaptation.
I'm sorry, whatever. That's my homeschool education.
So it's time to
topic.
segue Hadouken myself into this, and I get to repeat the good moment. As somebody who's played the game, and I saw the way me, Noah, and Steven saw how this episode ended when we played the game, and even with that, I was still crying by the end of this episode. I knew what was going to happen. I knew how it was going to happen. And I still cried at the end of this episode because when I played it on the PlayStation, I told myself I had to put the controller down. And this time I just cried. So that tells me that the best is still yet to come for this show.
Yeah, Dave, just
believe.
trust.
No, I know. I'm
the hand that feeds. Dear God.
I will. Yeah, I am. But I will co-sign on Johnny's theory. There's going to be some sort of weather illness.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like a natural part of it. I maybe it's winter.
Papa Mazin just keeps feeding us these hits one after another, and Dave's like, "I don't believe you. I don't have any faith in you."
He's still getting over Lost all these years later.
Neil Druckmann's like, "Here, have another piece of cake." Dave, trust the process. That's all I'll say. Yeah, 4 more episodes. Just
David's theory is what's gonna happen.
4 more episodes of like 3-hour episodes. It better be 3-hour
he's
episodes.
He's gonna be like 20 minutes away from the season finale. He's gonna be like, how does this end, guys? Like,
I don't know. Does it end? I think it just ends. They just sort of like eating a sandwich or something.
Well, anyways, there it is. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate the lively conversation we had about episode 5 of The Last of Us. Thank you to my hosts, co-hosts, Noah, Nick, Johnny, and David. We'll see you guys next week for episode 6. Thanks for tuning into Spooky Screen. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, send us emails, handwritten letters, whatever the heck you
ring that bell.
Ring that bell. Peace. See you guys. Peace.